Here we go.
I'm good.
357 Productions is proud to present The Masonian, a monthly podcast for Freemasons with a focus on the Grand Jurisdiction of North Carolina. While not an official function of the Grand Lodge of North Carolina, we operate with the full endorsement of Grand Master Gene Cobb. The opinions expressed on this show are those of the participants and in no way reflect the opinions of the Grand Lodge of North Carolina, its members, or any appendant bodies. 357 Productions now own the rights to this music, so we can play it anytime we like. And we do like it. Huge Metallica fans. So that's kind of how it works. And we're glad to have you guys back for another episode of the Masonian. Tonight we're very happy to have Stancil Wilson, the Rite Eminent Grand Commander of the Grand Commandery of Knights Templar of North Carolina. And that is a mouthful.
I'm not but a simple pirate. I can't even spell all that. What does all that mean?
I have no clue, but I'm thinking we're fixing to find out.
Governor, we're glad to have you here, Stancil.
Don't overthink it.
We're glad to have. That's right.
And he looks really important.
So before we get to Stancil, let's talk about something more important. I never really asked you this. What does that mean we now own the rights to the music? Is it through the radio station?
Yes, through the radio station.
Does that mean that we can play any music we want?
We can play any music you would like to
like
your
in
heart's
the whole
content.
world?
Yes, pretty much.
Can we play like different Metallica songs?
I literally pay 4 companies rights, lots of rights, to play any kind of music we want to play.
And Lars can't say anything about it?
No, he is under that.
Oh, good. Well, we may have to add some more music. Matter of fact, we could just do away with all the talking and we could go straight to music.
Absolutely moving up, Wallace.
I know. Yeah, that's funny. So, Stancil, we're glad to have you here. I saw pictures of you splattered all over Facebook last weekend. The weekend before that, y'all were in D.C. It looked like you were doing some really important stuff. What was happening up there?
Very true. It was a very good weekend. We went up for the Knights Templar of the Grand Encampment, which is the national purview of the division of York Rite. And every year at the George Washington Masonic Memorial, they have an Easter observance. And it's been our tradition in North Carolina for as long as I know that North Carolina, as a Grand Commandery or a function of some part of that, always lays a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier the day before. So Saturday we had, I would say all in total, 15 Sir Knights in uniform all over the state show up. We laid a wreath about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which is a really cool experience. They have strict rules on who can do that and how you apply and all this, but it was 4 of us who actually get to walk down, place the wreath, and but we had others in uniform on the sideline. But when you cross that mat, that is a very surreal moment. And so we got to do that again this year, and then immediately after leaving that, we got a kind of a off schedule. One of the tomb guards said he was going to move to North Carolina very soon, and he wanted to meet some friends, and we would like to take a private tour under the tomb where the guard station is. So he said, how many is in your party? About 15 or 20. So we all got to file in, squeeze into their personal area, and get a backstage pass at the look of their day-to-day, their wall of all the people who were guards. There were 600 and some guards total, and we got to see all those names. Some very interesting, unique stuff that happened there. So some things I can't even tell you. I don't want to put down the old guards, but that was a really, really cool experience. And if I may, after that, we actually did a little homage to a war hero / North Carolina Mason hero named James Edward Lotta. We wanted to do something to incorporate all those Sir Knights were in uniform, and we didn't know if we had somebody in our membership that was buried there. And sure enough, we did some research, found out there was a guy. He was buried at Arlington, and he had a Purple Heart and another medal. I can't think right off the top of my head. I think it was I don't want to say, but anyway, he was very much a war hero in his time, both in several wars, and retired as a lieutenant colonel, I believe. And his daughter actually works at the Pentagon for the Department of the Navy. We contacted her, and she actually met us there at it. So we laid another wreath at his tomb and honored him. He was also appointed Grand Tyler for the Grand Lodge back in 1992, I believe. So he's got a Grand Lodge connection, and He was a York Rite member, Scottish Rite member. Really, really cool guy. So we got to do that as well.
That's a special place up there, isn't it?
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's all uphill, by the way.
Yeah.
Especially in uniform. I believe all the hills even go down, they still go up. So.
Well, you know what y'all
Very
need is
cool.
like a Kazon unit. You need like horses and stuff.
I don't think we're that important.
Shriners have got horses.
I don't doubt it.
Segways?
Good. Hey, let's talk about some stuff going on in North Carolina, and then we're going to get to talking about a whole bunch of York Rite stuff. So we'll probably do this like we've done before, where we kind of try to do the local stuff first, and then when we do the York Rite stuff, maybe Brown can do some magic and split this thing into two segments where if you just want to hear the York Rite stuff, you can skip all the public announcements or vice versa. I don't know. We always go into this thing with not much of a plan, but that's what we're going to try and do. So one more thing about this D.C. trip, though. I heard y'all went to a sunrise service.
Yep, I didn't complete that.
I heard you missed sunrise.
I was there, but we didn't get much of a sunrise. But yeah, that's the next day at the George Washington Memorial. All the family and Sir Knight sit on the front steps that overlooks King Street all the way down to the water. It's very cool, very early, but I would say there was 300 or 400 people there, 300 Sir Knights in uniform. Each state parades up the hill in a parade military fashion, and then they all take their seats and have an Easter church sunrise service. So
I was surprised when I went to the George Washington National Masonic Memorial, whatever all that thing is, that there's a ton of York Rite stuff in there.
yeah,
There's a whole bunch of
that building's
couple
designed in
floors.
a way that each, as you know, it's kind of built like a pyramid. It actually was one of the 7 wonders of the world. I don't know exactly, but anyway, it was. As you go up in that building, you have all the Blue Lodge rooms are on the first level, and then as you go up to the next one, I believe is a Royal Arch room, and then as you go up, there's a Cryptic Mason's room. Mm-hmm. Above that is the Knights Templar room, and I think the last one at one time was a Tall Cedars of Lebanon. It was one of the smaller groups because the room is about half the size of this area on the top. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting. The Knight Templar room is all Gothic, and it has a guy there in armor, and it's very, European looking. And they actually let all the military members who need to get married, they let them get married there for free. So that's pretty cool.
It is very cool. It's a really cool building. If you've never been there, every Mason ought to go see that. Every American ought to go see our nation's capital, and every Mason ought to go see that memorial. It's really nice. Have you been, Riley?
Yes.
It's awesome. I love that place.
So much of George Washington's property is owned by them. I mean, so going to Mount Vernon's very cool, and that's where a lot of his personal things are, but there's a lot of his stuff there.
Yes.
So
yes, indeed.
Just on that note alone, it's pretty cool to go see.
Now, it was very sad to hear about Alexandria, Washington 22. They apparently had some trouble with their Grand Lodge up there. I've been in that building, but I've never sat in their lodge. But those guys have been good to us. They've helped us out. Andrew Hammer is certainly a friend of Mason's in North Carolina. We wouldn't have Sophia Lodge probably if it wasn't for the things that he did in pointing us in the right direction. And I'm sure that they're going to get all that worked out pretty soon. It's just a sad. You just hate to see. Here's the really sad part. Whenever some Masons get in trouble, it seems like a whole bunch of other Masons have to run over there and jump on them and start beating up on them like a pack of wild, rabid dogs. And it just makes me angry. I can't cuss anymore, but it makes me angry. Why not do that? If somebody's down, why don't you lend them a hand up instead of kicking a man when he's down? That goes for any humans, especially your brothers.
Yeah, practice what we preach. We talk about that a lot, actually.
Yeah. People are people. They'll disappoint you every time, won't they?
People
but we're about uplifting positive message here, so we're going to let all that go. Now, I'm sure them boys going to get things turned around and fixed up, and patched up, whatever there is to patch up, and going to go on. So, anyway, something I want everybody to be aware of is Wilkerson College Lodge Symposium is June 10th. It seems like that's a long way off in the middle of summer, but it's not really that far off. Be sure and put that on your calendar. It'll be in Greensboro again. We're going to have 2 wonderful speakers coming to that thing, Ryan Flynn, Masonic artist extraordinaire, and Oscar Allen, who's been here several times speaking. Dr. Allen is a gem, and we love him here in North Carolina, and that's going to be a great day.
What was that date again?
June 10th in Greensboro. And they'll also, as far as I know, are going to have the ritual competition It's a big day. It's a big Masonic day in North Carolina. Everybody put that on your calendar. Be sure and go. Wilkerson College is going to be finishing up May 6th. I don't guess that really matters to anybody listening to the show other than the fact that they're fixing to be graduating a class. May 6th, that happens in Raleigh. I have a new crop of leaders coming out of that, and it's always a happy day. Davie Academy is going great. We continue to have one session per month. We've almost run the cycle on what we initially set out to do with Davie, so we'll be starting over again. Leadership of that group is in the process of having some talks. We may move some of the curriculum stuff more over to a workshop style, and I don't know, but all the material is going to continue to be offered, and we're adding more things, and we're very excited to do that. Basically, Davie is just continuing to grow and expand, and anytime you're educating your people, training, trading is an investment, not an expense, as we say in business.
That's correct.
And it can do nothing but pay dividends for our guys for all this training that we're doing. So if you've not participated in Davie, it's easy enough. Go to the Grand Lodge website, go to the Educational Resources section. You will see the William Richardson Davie Academy. Click on that, and you will see a workshop or a academic session coming to an area near you. And all you got to do is sign up and pay $45 and go have a great day of education. If it's one of the workshops, they're cheaper. They're only I think we charge $15 for those. So money shouldn't be an issue on any of that. And because I assure you that you will get your money's worth if you go to one of those things. Hey, Grand Lodge has got a podcast. Did you know that? Which are not us.
I've heard a little bit about it, but I don't know much.
So Riley says at the beginning of this thing, we read a thing that say that we are not official. Right? We're not officially anything.
You're tractor shed.
We're the tractor shed. That's right. We're
good for you.
So we're nothing officially, but we kind of operate. We say that we operate, with the endorsement of the Grand Master, and so every year I go ask the Grand Master. As he's, after he's elected and about time he's getting installed somewhere in there, hey, is it okay if we continue to run this thing with your blessing? And they have always so far said yes. We hope that continues. But apparently they're going to have something more official than us, which will be fine. And I hope they do great. And I know not a doggone thing about it other than I saw it pop up on the Facebook page the other day, and I went to it. And what they have there now is the Lodge System of Masonic Education. Apparently they had Al Terrell, who's this wonderful dude from up in the mountains, and he has this deep radio voice. And the day that I found out about it, no kidding, we were at Wilkerson College at Oxford, and Al was in the class. He's a Wilkerson College student, and he was just talking, and I wrote down on my pad, find some way to use Al Terrell's voice. And later that day I talked to him, he's like, hey, Ben, so I went down to the beach and recorded the whole Lodge System of Masonic Education for you guys. I'm like, what do you mean for you guys? I don't know, some kind of Masonic education thing. Isn't that you? I'm like, nope, I don't know anything about it, but that sounds great. Well, what they did was they apparently they recorded the whole Lodge System of Masonic Education. And I think what they've done is they broke it down into 20-some parts, how that thing's broken down in sections anyway. So that I'm assuming their thought process there is if they... if somebody's in a lodge that doesn't do the Lodge System of Masonic Education, you could listen to it. Or maybe if you're a lodge that's putting it on and you don't want to actually do it in person, you could give it to the guy to listen to. I'm assuming that's what I hadn't heard anything.
And we do know that it's on the. They did post it on the North Carolina Mason Facebook page. I also think it may be on the Grand Lodge Facebook page. I'm not sure, but I know for sure it's on the North Carolina Mason.
Well, maybe Bethel.
I think Beth knows a little bit about it. I think Jonathan may know a little bit about it.
Hopefully Beth's going to write some kind of article about it so people know where to go and what to do. So it sounded like a great resource to me. I have no idea if they're planning on replacing us with cooler kids. If they do, that's cool, whatever.
No, it's not.
But well, we'll shift our focus and we'll talk about drinking beer and riding motorcycles then. How about that?
You know how to do that?
Well, I know how to talk about it. Okay. I don't know if we know how to do it or not. Anyway, whatever, that thing exists, and go check it out and have a grand time with it. So middle chamber's going on. So let me talk about middle chamber just a minute. Stancil, we're going to talk about middle chamber. You know anything about it?
I've heard nothing but wonderful things about it.
So here's the deal. 3 years ago, we started doing allegory and symbolism lectures across the state. couldn't believe that they let us do it. Grandmaster Caudle said, I asked him, can I do this allegory and symbolism lecture across the state? And he said yes, and I about fell down. So anyway, we started doing that, and that's kind of morphed into the idea of we morphed that into what we call the hook, which is an introduction. And then if you want to go to the introduction and you like the stuff that we talk about, all the allegory and symbolism of the Blue Lodge degrees, then you can sign up for this class for $100. So for $100, you get 3 books, 3 really good books, Steinsmant's book, Wilmshurst's book, and Kirk McNulty's book, and a journal, and you get to sign up for class. We have 40-some people. We're having a little trouble on the admin side. We don't exactly know how many people have signed up, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 40-ish have signed up for this thing. And we just did the first session, which was in Raleigh this past weekend, and it was really good. There's always a bug or two you can work out, but for the most part, we feel like we really have hit this thing out of the park. The students, we got really good feedback. So here we are, Stancil, a Grand Lodge, official Grand Lodge function, with the Junior Grand Warden of North Carolina at its head, doing a class on the esoteric parts of the Symbolic Lodge.
It's about time.
It's about time, and I'm so proud that we're the first ones to do it, as far as I know, certainly to do it in this format. So please thank your leaders when you see them, because they certainly did not have to do this. Sean Bradshaw did not have to be the leader of this. Gene Cobb did not have to say it's okay to do it. And this is just the beginning, I feel like. I feel like this program is going to be very popular. I think there's a hunger for it in our younger Masons. And this is talking about the things that guys join for.
Sure. You have crested a major mountain. I mean, and it had to happen, but it's here. Thank goodness.
I'll be very interested to see where this program is in 3 or 4 years. I feel like it's going to be bigger. I think that the guys that are in this class are going to go back and tell all their buddies, man, that was really awesome. And more people are going to sign up next year. I think next year we're going to have twice as many as we had this year. And I think it'll continue to grow for a while. May not. I don't know. What do I know? But I feel, and my intuition tells me this is going to be a good thing for Masonry in North Carolina. And I hope it grows to other grand jurisdictions.
It's the age of Aquarius. I don't want to get too deep, but man, it is.
Go for it.
But that's what's happening. I really believe that. It's
okay. So go ahead with age of Aquarius.
It was.
So there's this
absolute
theory.
truths. I mean, it's a coming whether we like it or not. So I think Masonry is a school of wisdom, and we should be on the front of that, not the back. So I think this state is on the front by your work and Davey and all these guys here. I mean, y'all have really pushed a hard thing over a big mountain. So I think it's all going to be a lot easier to keep this thing going.
So to talk about an esoteric thing in a relatively non-esoteric way, there's hope amongst, hopefully, all Americans, humans, that humanity will at some point rise above the divisions that we seem to have. And it seems like right now that our society is being divided more and more all the time. We seem to be going in a more divisive route than we have been. Sure. And it'll kind of get you down if you think about it. But, it's always darkest right before dawn, right?
Sure.
And things aren't near as bad as they make out like. The press likes to sell bad stories. They don't want to sell good stories. But I think we're in much better shape than folks think. And as we press forward trying to make humanity better, I don't have a bully pulpit to the world. We got this stupid little podcast here that reaches a couple hundred people maybe.
It's just moving. I'm not
the leader of the UN or the president of the United States or anything. But if we all do our part to try and make society a little bit better, and that's what we should do, especially as Masons, make ourselves better, make our society better, then hopefully we'll drag humanity on down the road towards being a better society.
Sure.
So in esoteric circles, we have this big fancy thing called, the age of Aquarius is going to be the time that man, understands this and fulfills his spiritual potential. But it's just really that. It's just about folks getting better all the time, and not repeating the sins of the past and spending a little more time on love and understanding. and unity instead of division and hatred. And not only does the Blue Lodge talk about it a lot, the Scottish Rite is absolutely, completely full of it.
Sure.
And the York Rite degrees, which we're going to talk about the York Rite in a minute, but I'm sure that there's a lot of that in there too. I am a York Rite Mason. I'm sorry to report, Stancil, I don't go very much. And it's been a long time since I've seen the degrees.
You're busy.
Well, we're all busy. That's no excuse. But anyway, it's one of the things that we should be doing as Masons. How about that? Was that safe enough?
You nailed it. Rock on.
You want to add anything?
No.
Riley, you want to add anything?
No, I mean, I just think in North Carolina we're in a good spot. You know, it seemed like when I came in and when I was raised, we were just kind of keeping it between the lines. Nothing really progressive going on. It was just there.
Comfort zone.
Exactly. Exactly. It was a comfort zone. And I know as a young Mason, I kept asking Ben, well, when's all the cool stuff happen? I mean, I don't, there's got to be more to this than what we're doing. And since then, it's grown leaps and bounds. And I think North Carolina's got a great foothold. And
Yes.
I think we're starting to climb the mountain instead of just kind of lay on the side of it. So it's pretty cool, and I like it. I think it's a good thing.
Yes, and so we're all working in the quarries to make that happen. But don't forget, this is very important. I know it seems like I'm kissing their hiney, but there is no other grand jurisdiction in the United States will let us be doing the things that we're doing.
Yeah, we ask, and they're like, yes.
So thank those guys.
So, yeah, we're very fortunate.
It's so easy to squash but this idea, and they have not. They've embraced it, and you can really tell it.
Yep.
So, yeah, thank them. It's
going to pay huge dividends down the road.
Yeah.
I think the guys that get into Masonry for this sort of thing will tell their buddies that are not Masons, oh, you got to do this. You got to do this because they have all these great resources to talk about all the things that I joined for that me and you've been talking about. Yes, join. As opposed to when they would come in 10 years ago and be looking for these kinds of things. Not everybody's looking for this, right? But the guys that joined that are looking for this didn't find it, and then they just drifted away from it.
Sure.
Because it wasn't there.
Or they were just happy with status quo.
Happy, yeah. Maybe they paid their dues, or maybe they just,
thinking that that's all there is.
Yeah. Or maybe they just quit altogether, whatever. But now they got a reason to stick around.
Well, there's value coming. The value button has been dialed up. I really believe it.
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to think that all the work that you do in the lodge is going to make a difference. From the guy that, as Grandmaster Webster used to say, from the guy that buries our dead to sweeps our floors to locks the building up at night, everybody wants to feel like they're making a difference in some way. So, hopefully we are. Greensboro Scottish Rite this weekend. If you're listening to this podcast, you've already missed it, but we're really excited about it because Charlotte's going to come do it with us. We're going to do the degrees together, and we're going to do a lot more degrees than we normally do, and it's going to be wonderful and great. I love Scottish Rite. I know we're talking about York Rite on this program, but Greensboro Scottish Rite is also doing a thing called Letters from Home on July the 7th. That is a Friday night. There's these two ladies that sing, and they dress up like World War II, Andrews Sisters kind of thing, and it's a veterans deal, and it's to raise money for the Scottish Rite charities. It's going to be held at the Carolina Theater. If you see any Greensboro Scottish Rite Mason, you can get tickets or hit us up here at 357, and we'll see that you get some. Should be a really good event. I'm going to be in New Hampshire speaking, so I'm going to miss it, but should be good. If anybody's interested, really good deal. Bring your grandpa and come watch it, and it'll be great.
Wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Any announcements I missed?
I think you got them.
All right. Let's talk about York Rite. So, Stancil, York Rite. Where does York Rite thing come from?
York, England.
How did it get started?
Yeah. And I'll start off. I'm going to throw you for a loop. There is, people cringe when I say this, there really is no such thing as a York Rite. That's a broad, very broad term for many collective independent bodies who operate under this umbrella term of York Rite. But to answer your question, that term York came from York, England, which if you go through some of our rituals or some of our pending orders, they actually will reenact this when certain documents were actually signed by King Athelstan and Edwin, and about 927, 926, according to what historian you talk to. But nonetheless, this is when the chivalric orders or the Templar orders that were existing all through Europe, they were independent of stonemasons guilds, which were the operative lodges who were building cathedrals. And they couldn't get these two factions to agree until Athelstan said, I'm not letting you loose until you agree. And they agreed on 9 points and some other charges, might be 12 or 15 charges that are really one of the most oldest landmarks of Freemasonry. And so when that was signed into an agreement, that was really the first true landmark of Masonry, which was signed in at York, England. So that's where you get this broad term of York Rite. But really, in our world, and at least on the face value, the York Rite, as we speak of it in modern terms today, consists of a Royal Arch Masonry or Royal Arch chapter, which is a separate body. It consists of a cryptic and Royal Select Masters, if you will, or cryptic Masonry that operates under its own body. And then we have the Order of Knights Templar, which acts independently as its own body. So, but collectively, we are really all the same members. Typically, almost 95% of the cases, a member will belong to all three bodies.
So when you go to join York Rite, you go to one. Y'all call them a festival, don't you?
Yeah.
You go to one festival, which is broke up over a couple of weekends or some. Depends on how y'all do it, right?
Just like Scottish Rite.
But you're joining all three bodies.
That's the ultimate goal is to get that one individual through all three jurisdictions.
And you'll offer all three of those at one festival, so you don't have to do this over a number of years. You do it at a festival, right?
So you can get it all done.
Yeah, it's very quick. It's just same scenario as Scottish Rite, how they would do it. So there's no catechism work or memory work or time with a coach and all that. So it typically happens within 2 days, 3 days at the latest. So, but it varies from body to body according to how they just typically operate. But you start off, obviously the only qualification is you have to be obviously a Master Mason in good standing with the Grand Lodge. And once that's proven and recognized, then you would technically petition a Royal Arch Masonry chapter. And that's your first, I think, first 4 degrees. There's 4 degrees associated with that, at least in America. And those are your first 4. So there is an order. You have to go in a certain order, just like kind of Scottish Rite works. You can't kind of mix and match them very much. And then once that's happened, you go into the council, and then once you complete those, you finish in the commandery. Now, I will say the Royal Arch has, and I'm not here speaking as a historian on the Royal Arch, but it has a very unique interest to a Master Mason, because that's really where they get the completion of the word, opposed to in the 3rd degree where you feel like you're getting that knowledge, but really it's a placeholder. That part of the ritual, the actual word, is really a placeholder word, but you actually finish that story, if you will, in those degrees. So if you're a Master Mason for no other reason, that's why you should probably join a Royal Arch chapter to see that. So the amalgamation in 1813, you want to talk about this? Okay, so maybe not right now.
So we all know that the Grand Lodge of England is the United Grand Lodge of England now. Grand Lodge of England is having their 300th anniversary in 1717. That's when they first formed, an official body. And not long after that, the ancients came along, about 50 years later, and their body rose. So they had these 2 competing Grand Lodges in England, and they got back together in 1813 and amalgamated, and came together to form the United Grand Lodge of England. And when they did, they said they had all these differing opinions, and they had to put them in one document, right? And they said, this isn't a direct quote, but this is pretty close. The degrees of Masonry shall consist of 3 and no more, that of entered apprentice, fellow craft, Master Mason, and the Holy Royal Arch, which is 4. Which is 4. 3, it shall consist of 3 and no more, and then they can name 4.
Go figure.
Go figure. So I also know and don't really understand that apparently the York Rite stuff is much older than the Scottish Rite. Our lodge was formed in 1850, and not long after that, like 1852 or 3, they formed a little Royal Arch chapter way down here in Mount Gilead, North Carolina, in the middle of nowhere. And they used to have a ton of those little ones all around, and y'all still have more than the Scottish Rite, right?
We have probably 28, so.
In the state of North Carolina.
I would think that's correct. 28 chapters.
So there are more little chapters as opposed to a few big ones. Scottish Rite's got, what, 7 or 8?
Right.
Something like that. 6 or 7. 7, I think. So it apparently was between the amalgamation story and I'm hogging up all your time here,
No,
Stancil.
go
But
for it.
and the fact that they got a bunch of little chapters all around, and the fact that it is the completion, it must be really important.
Sure.
This completion. I'm throwing you softball here.
Yeah,
so tell us why it's so important without bumping up against your obligations.
Right, because we do have a few of those. But it's like I said, it's a completion of this word, and what you received in the 3rd degree is really a placeholder. So to get the full story, I hate to say it like this, join up. And I can't tell you what that word is, but it's if you go through the Scottish Rite, you can probably see some similarities of that word or some of those actions. But it's more than the word. It's the idea of what that degree represents. Sure. And it's I'm not adept in Royal Arch as I am commandery work, but I can tell you it's a very important thing. It's a very important completion of your Masonic journey, because, like you said, all the older schools of thought always said, is completed at the Royal Arch or the Holy Royal Arch. They didn't stop by saying at the Master Mason's degree. That was only in kind of modern times where this you're complete at the 3rd degree is kind of invented. It's really not true. If you look back in older ways, it really ends at the completion of the Holy Royal Arch degree. So, and I can't tell you anymore.
Yeah.
So you have festivals. When's the next festival coming?
They're all over the place. So the local closest to here would be Greensboro.
And I think that's the really cool one, if I'm not mistaken. Is that Castle McCulloch?
I got to be easy. I speak for everybody, but Greensboro is a very strong York Rite, very good ritualist. All the degrees are in full form, and all the props and all that wonderful stuff. Some people have more trouble with that because of the building size and everything, but Greensboro is coming up. Well, we've just completed Greensboro, so Greensboro will come up again in the fall. More than likely, that's probably a September date. Probably late September, early October is typically when they come in. But there's also Charlotte York Rite. There's, like I said, there's about 20, all in all, there's about 27 Royal Arch chapters, and there's a few less commanderies. So not all the York Rite bodies have the 3rd body. But there's 26 commanderies, so they're scattered through all over North Carolina. Anybody can get to a York Rite or join a York Rite body easily within an hour drive. So
we got a bunch of buddies in Fayetteville that do a lot of York Rite stuff. I understand they're strong. So.
Fayetteville is one of the stronger York Rites. They probably have well over 300 members and a very strong group. And they don't have a Scottish Rite there in Fayetteville, so that body tends to even be more stronger in the York Rite because they focus strictly on that. So you have Raleigh, you have Fayetteville, Wilmington, New Bern, Salisbury, Charlotte, Gastonia. They're really all over.
Coming to a location near you.
I'm coming to that's it. So you can look on the website to find out all the information where the bodies meet and contact for the secretary, and that's how you would ask for a petition and so on if you were interested. But each body does them on different times. Normally they're big in the spring and big in the fall, just like kind of Scottish Rites do. But so typically there's not many months during the year where you can't jump in. And a lot of times if you're really eager to get in or for whatever reason you don't want to wait, sometimes a body that would be your home body would offer another body to take you in as a courtesy. So you could, maybe you have a work issue where you couldn't do it in the fall, you're trying to get it done now or whatever. So normally that body will ask another neighboring body to take you in, and they'll take you through. You could do it that way as well.
I'll tell you what, something that surprised me about the York Rite degrees. I understood when I joined, I thought I understood that it was specifically for Christians, for Trinitarian Christians.
You hear that a lot.
And so I expected a lot of Christian iconography and degrees and stuff.
Didn't get it, did you?
No, I didn't get it. And I was surprised. But what I did find is there's a lot of really esoteric stuff in those degrees. The Holy Royal Arch degree is full of some really deep concepts that if you kick around in that world, you will recognize a lot of things that are going on there, and it's not specifically Christian.
A lot of things tied to ancient Israel or the Hebrews, the Hebrew language, just a lot going on with the Ark of the Covenant, the furniture that was in Solomon's temple and the tabernacle and Herod's temple. A lot of that stuff's used in the props. So there's a lot more Jewish influence in the first two bodies than you're expecting, because everybody said, well, you have to be a Christian to join that. That's not true, and that doesn't take effect until you petition your commandery degrees, which there's only 3 degrees conferred under a charter to do, and they're called orders, not degrees. But that's when you have to take a profess in the Christian religion, and that. And so sometime you'll have members who were members of the Jewish faith, and they don't take a part of that, so they'll stop at the cryptic degrees, which is perfectly fine. That happens not too much, but I mean, it's fine if you're not a Christian, but you wanted to go through it.
From my experience, I would certainly say that if you were not a Christian, you would not feel in the least bit uncomfortable with going at least that far.
Right.
And you should, because, again, you need the Holy Royal Arch to complete that understanding of what's hinted at in the 3rd degree.
Yeah, but the commandery degrees, or Knight Templar degrees, if you keep calling degrees, orders, is really the only time that is asked upon you. And then if you're not a believer in Christian religion, then you can't carry on. But if you are, and you are part of the Christian faith, you'll get some extremely eye-opening experiences, especially if they're conferred well. The stories, the parables that are taught, there's 3 orders. The Order of the Red Cross, which is kind of an odd section when actually the one of the temples are getting rebuilt. So, but the Order of Malta is a very cool one, because that's very, very historic and very true. It's not a kind of a made up thing. It's actually based off a lot of very historic facts with the island of Malta, its whole history with the chivalric orders, the hospitators, all the St. John's, and all those historic fighting monks. You get to experience a lot of that in that degree. And then once you complete that, you go through the Order of the Temple, which is finally where you're knighted a Knights Templar.
Which is one of the coolest experiences in Masonry. Of all my Masonic degrees, and I've had a ton of them, that was the most profound one. Because we did it in the castle.
Oh, you went to the castle. That's
spectacular.
Well, that really helps.
And there's just a lot of cool stuff in that degree.
I'll brag on Greensboro. And if this might be a statewide function, we're still talking to Greensboro, because this is kind of their baby, being that the castle is in their backyard. But that really puts a whole different spin on the degree or the order. But if it's not done by them this year, I think the Grand Commandery is going to adopt it and open up on a state level to ask any candidates who want to come and go through it like that and experience it like you did will be able to do it.
Well, I'm just
it happens one way or another.
I tell you what I tell folks when they ask me about joining the York Rite. I say, yep, you want to do it, it's great. Wait until they have the castle degree, because it makes it all worth it.
And so if they're not having it, you got 2 deals signed up right now. He and I want to do it. So,
but you want to go to the castle?
Yes.
So they don't want to do it if you're not going to the castle.
Where we're going, it's going to happen one way or the other. As Grand Commander, I kind of got to let the local bodies decide if they want to do it. I don't want to ramrod them.
Let's do that.
I can do that after I give them
Iron Hammer, baby.
I give them a 30-day warning from this radio. You get 30 days to make up your mind. If not, I'm taking it on. So either way, it's going to happen.
So what you're saying is, you and Brown will go ahead and sign up as soon as they commit to the castle degree.
Yes. I assure you,
there's 2.
It will happen. It will happen, regardless of who's hosting it. It will be done.
Good,
because it is a transformative thing. A lot of people get really. You're out of the lodge building. You're in a completely different setting. If you've never been there, it's just you see a castle in Jamestown. You got to be kidding me. You think you were somewhere in Europe. I mean, you're in the woods. This is gas torches, a real moat, drawbridge, swan in there, and everything. It's not a Mickey Mouse type setting. It's a real stone building. So it's and to do that in there is very, very, very moving for the candidate.
It is fabulous. First time I ever met you, it was in the castle, and you were doing the Knights of Malta degree.
That was the first time then.
Because you had all the regalians. I don't think you had quite as much as you have now, because I saw you set up for it here a year ago or so, and it seems like you got even more. You had a ton of stuff.
Yeah,
that was really good.
That order actually is one of the biggest in New York, right? If to do it correctly, is about 30-some people in the cast just to pull that baby off.
I'll tell you what else I remember about that degree. There was some dude that read Scripture, and he had a way of reading it that just made it sound like he was just talking. It was, King James Bible stuff, so it's the these and the thous, but I don't know who that dude was, but he was fabulous.
It really helps if you read it one time before you actually do it. I'm just saying.
Now this guy just had a way of talking. I mean, he could just read it, and it was wonderful. I don't know who he was.
I've got to ask.
Yeah.
How old are you?
38.
38. Now that seems pretty young to be a Grand Commander to me. Like, is that normal?
No, it's not normal, and I don't encourage people to do that. You're going to get a lot more gray hairs than you should before you're due. To my knowledge, I'm probably the youngest by a bit. There were some others in there, my counterparts, for instance, illustrious grandmasters, the guys in purple, if you will. We have for some reason, a lot of those guys were 39. Jay Callahan, for instance. Bridges was one. He was about 39. So we've had a lot.
Which one?
Russell.
Uh-huh.
Russell Bridges was Grand Illustrious Master in 39. So
him and Tom run together all the time.
So it happens, but it's for Grand Commander especially. It's tough. I mean, it's rare, and it's a long line. We're elected in at Grand Warder, which means basically from the time you're elected in, which normally it takes a long time to earn that kind of respect out of people. It's a 10-year haul before you become Grand Commander. So. I don't believe there's many and I'm not bragging about it. It's just kind of how things worked out. But you get a lot of time to prepare for it. And of course, there's never enough time when you get there, because once it happens, it's a huge responsibility. But it's awesome. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm glad I'm doing it now, because I've worked under a lot of Grand Commanders who, they might, after they retire or something, I'm ready to go for it. And they say that at the age of 50 or 60 or so, and time they get there, add 10 years of that. And the travel and the planning and the organizing and the managing so many people, I mean, it would be tough to be an older guy to do this job, because it is a tough job. It really is.
So how do you think, I'm sorry, Ben, how do you think your group, being young, compares into what's going on in the grand scheme of things in North Carolina and Freemasonry? I mean, it's pretty neat that, you're 39 years old. Generally, you don't see that in any kind of grand line of any sort.
Right.
That young.
Yes, and we've said many times that we think our grand line being young is a big reason that they're so progressive. Do you find the same thing?
Yeah,
That's what he's asking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this, I love listening to 357 because it's always brought up. And
Thank you, Stancil. You can kiss our honey.
We'll keep it. You can come back.
Come on.
I listen all the time.
Don't stop. Stop.
But this, and it's not, especially when I was coming up and I was a nobody from nowhere. I was almost always the youngest guy in the room, almost anywhere I went, and I belonged to a lot of stuff. So. And I got to thinking, man, I hope this changes. And at one time, I didn't think it would. I really didn't think I would carry on or be as active as I am. But something started to happen. 4 or 5 years ago, this younger crowd, this an energized crowd, and they were not taking no for an answer very lightly. They were, well, we've never done that before. That didn't satisfy them. It didn't satisfy me, and I'm thinking, where have y'all been? I've been waiting on y'all guys for 5 years, and it's you guys. And other people like you. So it's happening. And what scares me the most, and especially that, I'm the Grand Commander of one body, but what scares me the most is, and I'm not trying to shoot down the older guys, because there's a lot of older guys, if they were not around today, I would be lost. But what scares me the most is we don't know what talent we're losing. And that,
exactly.
honest to goodness, scares me to death because we got a lot of smart guys in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s who were great in their profession, and we don't know what they do. Sometimes we've never asked them, hey, what do you do to make money? What do you do for a living? What talents do you have that we don't know about or we could use like yesterday? And they're very respectful for the older crowd. They're very respectful for the pomp and circumstance of how we all do things, and sometimes they don't speak up loud enough, and then worst of all, we don't ask them, and then they say, well, it looks like I'm only going to be appreciated or asked to do something after I'm around for 10 or 15 years, and then they might not last that long. They might say, you know what, I'm going to find something else to do or go play somewhere else. That worries me the most because I really believe we lose a lot of professional talent that could really help us. Because I found a few. As I'm coming up through my line, 10 years, most of the older wisdom has died or gone. So I knew I couldn't go after that. And I'm trying to find out where was a guy like me. And he might be a nobody from nowhere. And I might need him when I'm Grand Commander one day. And it's a good thing I kept my eye open. It's a good thing I looked very hard because I got some guys who were appointed or they might have got voted in or I threw them as a district officer or committees or whatever. I got some real heavy hitters that no one would know the talent that they had unless they were asked. And they have went gangbusters for me in my year, not just me, but to serve the body. Mm-hmm. And it scares me how much we're losing because it's happening. I just hope it don't happen much.
It's a great lesson. Yeah. It's a great lesson. I'll tell you who I learned that from was an old guy, Steve Lynch. I say that affectionately about Steve. But Steve Lynch will always, at Scottish Rite, go try to find the one new guy that's sitting there by himself that nobody's talking to. And he'll talk to anybody. Sure. He pops down, hey, how you doing? Steve Lynch. And next thing you know, Steve knows the dude's wife's name, where he's from. He knows some of his people. But he makes the dude feel welcome. And then he'll introduce him to somebody to get him a job. And you're exactly right, we need more of that. Because if I go somewhere and nobody talks to me and nobody seems to want me to do anything to help, I'm not going to come but a time or two, and I'm going to go do something else.
That's right. We get this. Sometime when you're younger, we're all younger guys, but you've had that feeling like this aura of this body or this prestige of this body or this group of guys. I'm just lucky to be in the room, right? So I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to get in the way. I'm just glad I'm even sitting here with them. That's a mistake because we're losing a lot of opportunity. Because I wish I'd have spoke up more as I came up, but I didn't because I'm thinking, well, I'm just lucky to even be here, much less offer my help or a suggestion or whatever else. Yeah. But we need to empower the younger crew that's been seasoned enough to say, okay, you got your training wheels off, you know how this operates, you know how we govern ourselves. So here's the keys, go at it. And if you get off the tracks, we'll let you know, but
yes,
go at it. And if you fall off the tracks, that's fine. Don't do it again.
Yes. So just out of curiosity, if you knew they were listening, who are just a handful of your Masonic heroes that have helped build you to this point?
Honestly,
you don't have to say me. I'm just saying it.
Ben Wallace, Brown, Daniels, Mike Daniels, a guy.
Yeah, that's one thing I got to say. You don't see him on camera because he's sitting over here behind me in the corner, but he's definitely one of my Masonic heroes for sure. Along with the other guys in this room, but Mike Daniels is really he's behind me, so I've definitely got to give him props back here behind me. But
they sent him down here to make sure Stancil didn't say anything.
That's right.
Yeah,
keep him in check.
Trying to figure out what faction sent Mike to make sure they keep me in line. I'll find out. I'm the Grand Commander. I'll find out.
Hey, in the Blue Lodge, when I came into the Blue Lodge, I wanted to learn to do degree work. That's what I like to do. I'm a ritualist first, I think. But everybody was already doing a degree, right? So all these old guys had these degrees nailed down, and they did the lectures, and they had those kind of nailed down. That was the guy that did the third degree lecture, right? Or the guy that sat in the East for the second degree. And I just felt like nobody wanted me to learn anything because I felt like they owned it, and they wanted to hold on to it, that they would jealously guard it. But the opposite was true. Mm-hmm. They were dying for somebody to come along and learn it. And this all kind of came to a head. There was a group of us, about me and you and Jeff and kind of that age group of guys, and we weren't really learning anything. And one day, somebody, I think it was Campbell, somebody said, hey, you know, those old guys are kind of disappointed in y'all because y'all don't seem to be wanting to learn to do anything. And I'm like, well, I didn't want to learn to do anything because it seemed like they wanted to hog it all up.
Sure.
Not hog it up, but they didn't want to let go of it. They wanted to own it. And so, but that broke the dam. And then all of a sudden, we started doing more, and they started sharing out. And now we have a wonderful mix at our lodge of, you know, the old guard and the new guys that kind of mix things up. But that's to your point, not only do we old guys have to be cognizant of the fact that, but the young guys, if you're a young guy and you're listening, I guarantee you that the old guys don't want to own those things that they're doing. They are more than happy to share them out.
Very true.
Stancil does that night on Malta degree. I guarantee if a young guy came up and said, hey, I'd really like to learn to do that, Stancil would be like, okie dokie, do it.
I'll tell you a story, and this is for some guy listening that was afraid to ask, but I came from the High Point York-Rite bodies, which was very much struggling, very old, and hanging on by a thread. We were having threats of our charter being removed, but we turned it around. We're doing good now, 10 years later. But Bill Brunk, when he was, I think he was Grand Commander at the time, he was wearing this about 10 years ago, and he's also over the Scottish Rite. He's had this joint thing of Scottish Rite and York-Rite degrees being conferred so people could go through both. It was a massive undertaking. But anyway, he basically sent this. He sent it out as Grand Commander, which this one of the orders fall under his purview. And he basically says, "Here's the deal: I'm assigning each York-Rite body an order or degree, and you're going to do it, or else." It was basically an or else letter. There was like, don't come with your excuses, just do it. Well, I go to this meeting. I'm not even the York-Rite for 6 months, I don't believe. We read this from the Grand Commander. You know, he's put down this letter from up high. Says, you're going to confer the Order of Malta. All the old guys looked at me and says, nope, won't be helping you. I can't hardly walk, so good luck with that. So I've never sat in the East in a practice in a Blue Lodge. I've not been master of my lodge yet. I don't think I've even sat in an officer's chair. And next thing you know, I get orders coming from the Grand Commander saying, you're going to confer the Order of Malta in this joint session in Winston-Salem, or else. Don't call with an excuse, just do it. So I said, well, I'll just have to do it. And I'm looking around. There's nobody except me or two, so I'm borrowing people from other places and looking in our closet for the Malta degree, robes and all that. We have nothing. So I'm making this stuff. We don't have really money to go buy it. I'm making it, borrowing it, whatever, going over the ritual, every night, nonstop. The first time I ever sit in the East of any lodge in my entire life, there were 115 candidates on this side of the room and about 120 spectators on that side of the room, and the man I conferred the order upon was Dave Cash, the Grand Master, in about a year. So at that point, I'm thinking, and I lived through it, and actually we got the whole room conferred, and we did Malta, and High Point actually did something that year. And if it wasn't for that letter, I believe a lot of my Masonic career would have been in jeopardy. I would have never had this thing around my neck.
Yeah.
High Point York-Rite would probably had all 3 charters pulled because that one little degree caused us to now get interested in doing something.
Yeah.
We couldn't fix all of our problems. We couldn't, we're still fixing some of them. But that one little, do it. Just do one thing. I might not be a Mason if it wasn't for that letter. I mean, because I've several years said this is not going to change. There's not going to be people my age. I don't see any way I can interact. But that one letter changed a lot, and we'll never know exactly how big that went. But
Tom Gregory always used to say, he had a talk he did. He said, it used to be if you wanted a man to do something, what you would do is you would go to his house, knock on his door, sit on his front porch, and say, hey, I want you to do this thing. He said, now it's kind of the personal phone call is taking the place of that because now we do everything by email and text. But you have to ask people to do something, or in this case, tell them to do it. But so many times I think we just sit around waiting on the young guys to come up and say, hey, can I do something, when we need to help them by kicking them out of the nest or asking them to do it or encouraging them, telling them what a great job they did.
Because the worst thing that can happen, you just screw up. Then you fix it. I mean, don't hesitate. Just
like it.
Because like I said, I always think about that, and I was going to talk about it in my speech after I was sworn in as Grand Commander, but that was a profound deal, and I always wondered what would happen if that letter never showed up. Mm-hmm.
How many Stancils were out there that didn't get
absolutely
that forced on them?
There's a lot of them, so we got to stop that one.
So the lesson in
Good luck with that.
So the lesson in this Stancil is you need to go get on your email tomorrow morning and force a bunch of stuff on all your lodges. How about that?
That top down, yeah, there we go. They'll hate me then.
Nah, they wouldn't do that. So the three bodies that make up the York Rite, you're one of them, and you're the head of the Knights Templar.
Head of the Knights Templar.
You know who loves the Knights Templar?
Who's that?
Riley Beeman. Huge Templar fan, talking about it all the time. Riley, here's your chance. Ask him everything you ever wanted to know about the Templars.
The most they did a study on to the general public of all the Masonic bodies, Masonry, Shriners, how the general public understood it or not, and the biggest recognition was the word Knights Templar. They recognized that before they did Freemason, and that's amazing, really.
It's that video game that did it.
That's it. It's the History Channel, I think. Yeah. But fire away. It's a I like to call it we try to be the most prestigious Masonic Christian military organization on earth. Of course, that's what we strive for. But it is a quasi-military order. I mean, even our uniform is military in fashions, and our ranks and our commands and our movements, and so it has a very interesting flavor. Both the teachings of the Christian religion and the parables of Jesus are very much in the degree work, but also it's layered in a military order. So it's a unique, very unique thing.
You used to see pictures of the Templars marching a lot in parades, especially in the old days. There's tons of these old pictures of them.
Hundreds
of them. Yeah, hundreds of them. So
not so much anymore. We still do drill and those type of actions. It's more like a side item, if you will. That's we do parades and stuff like that. Drill team work just like the military does. Competitions on local levels and national levels every 3 years.
Really?
So yeah, it's we actually have a drill team in North Carolina that's been going on for about 7 years.
Really?
Out of Wilmington. So that's up and coming. Which
we have the Fayetteville guys to do that. Hell, they're all in the military.
I know the Fayetteville hadn't picked it up. So if they did, Wilmington would have a tough time. But it really resonates with military guys. That's why Fayetteville's so strong. They're most of the guys in that room are military. So
Fayetteville guys, get it together. Get this marching thing going.
They
bring the trophy home to North Carolina.
That's it. There'll be a national competition.
Have they got one in Jacksonville?
No. There's not a commandery in Jacksonville. There's just the other two bodies. But right now in this state, generally speaking, the jurisdiction is about 2,800 members. You could call it York Rite members, and most of those belong to all three bodies. And on a national level, at least for the Knights Templar, we're about 93,000 members within the 50 states, and there's probably another 5 or 10% in about 10 other countries. So the jurisdiction of Knights Templar, how we recognize each other, is not just within a North Carolina thing. It's all 50 states and about 10 other countries we take on recognition with.
So how many North Carolina York Rite Masons?
There's probably 2,800 of us right now.
Out of 40,000? Well, we don't know how many Masons there are in North Carolina, but around 40,000.
I think there's more. You never know. I've watched your show.
That's less than 10%.
Yeah, it's bad. It's not a proud number, in my opinion. I think we should be much greater than that.
Very surprised. I would have thought we had at least 15 or 20%.
Yep, it's not where I want it to be.
Everybody needs to giddy up and go join the York Rite.
They're missing out. It's a lot of light in Masonry. That's it's a very unique system. A lot of esoteric work, a lot of hidden meaning work, a lot of symbolism, and then if you're in the Christian religion, man, it's the first place you really get to openly express Masonry and the Christian religion. Everywhere else, you really can't go there. So
you probably don't remember this, but you asked me to come speak at High Point one time.
Sure,
for Christmas.
I remember.
The only time I've ever spoken and I was getting amen. There was some dude there that was amening me.
Hey,
because I was talking about Jesus, and I was preaching a sermon is what I was doing. Dude's over there going, amen,
Not
amen.
being.
I was like, yeah.
he didn't get enough of it that morning because that was on a Sunday, I believe.
Yeah, pretty cool. So the Knights Templar that you're in, do y'all have a lineage that goes back to, where do you trace your lineage back to, or when did it start, do you know?
Back to France. You could say we started in 1118.
So do y'all actually tie to the Templars?
It's difficult to make that case 100%. But
by legend, by legend,
absolutely
obviously.
by legend. So, is there a relic, an artifact, a piece of documentation? It's hard to make a really, really strong connection. But we did start in 1118, and we actually, if you ever read our letterhead or our Knights Templar magazine, you'll hear these funny dates like 899 AO. That's because we always back off from the time we were founded, technically in 1118 in Jerusalem. So it started off with 9 original knights, more than likely from, could have been a few from Portugal, Spain, France, all those parts in Europe, and it was 9 knights who petitioned King Baldwin, King Baldwin. I have my cheat sheets. Yeah, they petitioned
right.
King Baldwin in Jerusalem to be a chartered group of monk knights, and he issued that charter, and they got to camp out, and their headquarters was under Solomon's Temple in the stables there. And of course, the legend goes on. They did a lot of digging. They found a lot of things, which it's all over the place. Everything from a bloodline, everything. Hollywood has really romanticized the whole deal. But did they find stuff? Sure, I believe they knew stuff before they even started digging.
Where do you think they got that information?
I believe there's a Cistercian connection to those 9 original monks, more so than we as modern Knights Templar express.
Bernard.
Yeah, could be. I mean, I believe they're what they were doing before they even showed up was already in the ball was already in motion. So that's how it starts. And I believe, you hear these warrior monks. That's really probably not true. I think they were more monks than anything else. I think they were more monks than warriors. I think they just traveled around with a sword to keep off the coyotes. I mean, it's kind of overdone about the Crusades and all that. That's really a separate faction in history, I believe. Ours really came from a esoteric Christian perspective on some of those studies, more so than fighting.
There's certainly lots of legends that they were very chummy with the Muslim guys in the
Sure.
Middle East at the time, and exchanging a lot of esoteric ideas.
Absolutely. They got along very well on a lot of occasions, did a lot of business with each other, exchanged a lot of the esoteric ideas. I mean, a lot of that stuff was not disputed amongst. They agreed among themselves with a lot of that stuff. So, which is much older than just the Christian perspective of knowledge of truth and all this type of stuff. So it's a really we kind of dumb down the history sometime on face value. I think sometime not to scare people off, but I believe the original 9 were a much deeper group than we probably understand them to be.
Well, there's certainly some pretty prevalent theories that they did know what was going on in the Middle East and
Sure.
what they were going to get before they ever left.
Yeah, definitely 2 things that got them in trouble was their knowledge, whether if it was relics, whether if it was knowledge of all the things you hear about on History Channel, or just simply gold or treasures themselves. But ultimately that got the Pope and the King of France very greedy, and on Friday the 13th, 1307, he said, "All right, off with your heads, and we'll lock them up." And they only locked up, to my understanding, they probably only locked up about 10% of the active Knights Templar on the rolls. 90% probably fled to other parts very safely. They had a huge naval fleet. They had the biggest fleet in the world probably at that time. So they had many means to take their knowledge and their traditions and their defense of the Christian religion to many other places. I think North America they came. I think they went to absolutely Scotland and Switzerland even. There's a lot of telltale signs that they just showed up with different clothing in different parts of the world. So ultimately, I don't believe the king got exactly what he wanted, but he did get a few of them arrested, and that's when they got Jacques Desmoulins. So that's where Desmoulins, the word Desmoulins comes from. He was the big cheese at the time, and he eventually went through many years of torture before they burned him at the stake. But the show went on.
Nice guys.
Yeah, they were nice guys.
Well, I think probably, this is just Ben's opinion, I think probably you're exactly right. They knew what they were going there for. Those first 9 guys were, and they probably were very esoteric and doing what they were going to do for, the first 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years. But 200 years is a long time. They had probably gotten the same way the Masons did. Mm-hmm. When the speculative Masons, went into the lodge, they had a reason for doing it. They had a tradition they wanted to carry on. And now 200 years later, we've forgotten 99% of that. And I think probably the Templars were the same way. By the time they burned them down in 1307, they had just they had lost their way. They probably that underground current that you were talking about, Stancil, had moved on to somewhere else.
Yep. I believe all that spread into Masonry, different factions, and then it gets blurry about how we come back or form back in charter and who's recognizing who. But there's no doubt that system completely merged into Masonic guilds, both operative and then speculative later, and then revised itself somewhere down the path. But we still exist, and we still practice those teachings and those parables the best we can that we know about. We do have a tie. We do have our own separate charities throughout the York Rite. There's 4 charities all between 3 bodies, but the Knights Templar today actually go back to one that ties us back to the old, which is actually we send ministers to the Holy Land. We have a Holy Land charity, and this is very cool because we actually get to interact with the person directly. It's not like we send it in money to a fund and it grows and then someone gets something out of it. We actually will find a minister, an ordained minister, who under certain guidelines meet qualifications, and we actually, and I've got to do it once. It's very moving. You get to call this person normally out of the blue. You don't know them. Hey, we've been kind of digging into you. Do you have any money? No. Does your church have much money? No. Have you ever been to Israel to see where Jesus walked and taught and all that? No. Are you physically able to walk X miles a day? Yeah. What are you doing on February 21st? We're going to put you in a plane for 10 days and send you to Israel on a guided tour with buses and experts to take you around for 10 days, and we pay for all of it. So that's a very, very cool charity that we have, and that goes back to the idea of protecting those certain people to go to the Holy Land, experience the Holy Land, like we were claimed to do back in our original founding. So that's a real, and those people are really moved when they come back, and we try to get them to speak at our state functions or our annual banquet or whatever. It's very, they move the room. I mean, they're very changed people when they come back to get, experience that they think they would never get to see, and they're, floating in the Dead Sea. They're looking at that tree and the Mount of Olives, and I mean, they're there for 10 days, really hard. So
I would love to hear one of them speak. Let me know next time you have one
absolutely.
speak.
Absolutely, it's really cool, really cool.
I have a candidate for you.
Cool. Send them over.
For those of you that don't know, if you've been in the Greensboro Blue Lodge room at the Greensboro Temple, Stancil did all that furniture in there.
I'm going to have to pay $357 now. This is where it comes.
Here
comes the advertising.
This is the hard pitch here.
How much is this one cost?
So what is it that you do for a living?
I'm a furniture guy. Of course, I'm from High Point, so my interest has always been in making of furniture, but that's changed now. I do a lot of consulting work with furnishing commercial spaces and that type of thing. I used to furnish banks. I used to sell furniture. I used to make furniture. So if it's furniture related, I'll either do it, make it, tell you how to make it, or get it made one. But
if you're a lodge and you were thinking about getting new furniture, do yourself a favor and go to Greensboro and look in their Blue Lodge room and see the fabulous, fabulous stuff that Stancil did.
Thank you.
And then call him and spend some money with him.
A lot of money.
A lot of money. A lot of money.
That was That was a blessing, though, because that was all a donation from one individual who left their estate to that lodge, and they were able to do a lot with it. And that lodge, Old 76, came back and said, they had to approach the temple board over there and say, we want to do what we can to help this room out. And it was good for everybody. It really worked out.
It was. That place is a treasure, and I'm really glad that we were able to keep that building. It was
Absolutely.
nip and tuck there for a while, I understand, but I think we're in pretty good footing now.
It's about the only one left like that, so I hope we never lose it.
I hope so. I mean, the importance of masonry isn't in the building, but it matters.
But it helps.
It helps.
Yeah.
It helps.
Yep.
You know, it's all good. All right. Let's talk. Tell me about the other appendant things within York Rite Masonry. There's York Rite College. What is that?
It's like a dark hole at this point. When you talk Scottish Rite, you hear there's 33 degrees, and one's an honorary, and it kind of stops at that point. York Rite, you hear, well, there's like 9 degrees, and that's the basic 9 degrees between the three bodies. Here's the good news or bad news. It doesn't stop there. It just keeps on going and going and going. So there's appending orders and bodies from other appending orders and bodies, and it goes on and on and on. Just like obviously the Knights Templar is what resonates with me, but just in the Christian order of Freemasonry, there's Order of St. Thomas of Acon. There's the Holy Royal Arch Knight Templar Priest. There's it just goes on and on with just chivalric orders, but there's also things that encompass all 4 bodies, like the Blue Lodge, Chapter, Council, Commandery, and that's called the York Rite College. That is a system within itself. It has its own jurisdiction, its own charters and warrants and officers and all that. So it's just tons of other systems. There's Irish Masonry called the Knights Masons, which is a kind of a system out of Ireland that we encompass. It's kind of like marrying our 4 Blue Lodges and the Royal Arch with an Irish spin.
I didn't know that was part of the York Rite system.
It is because in our system you have to be a Royal Arch Mason, and that's where a lot of the catch is. You have to have that completion of your Blue Lodge experience, and the world at large will tell you the completion of your Blue Lodge experience is receiving the Royal Arch. And so once that knowledge is passed on to you at that point, a lot of the other pending bodies say, okay, if you're a Royal Arch Mason, then you can petition this, that, or the other thing. So that's kind of where the York Rite ties hooks come in with these appending orders, because you can't get that necessarily through the Scottish Rite. It wouldn't be recognized. You can't get that by being a Shriner. It wouldn't be recognized. So you have to have that prerequisite of a Royal Arch Mason and that word and that degree and that knowledge to petition a lot of these other bodies. And that seems to be the most common area that you have to do to carry on and other stuff. But it goes on. And all of them have their different charities. All of them have their different officers. I mean, so York Rite is like a black hole of light. And if you're not careful, it's like anything else. It can eat you alive. But it's doable. It's not like Blue Lodge responsibilities. A lot of those bodies don't meet necessarily monthly and such a demand. So it's a little bit more doable than one may think. With a lot of knowledge in them. Some of them are very old. Some of them are not so old. So
cool. Come back sometime. We'll do a program specifically on the Templars.
Absolutely.
I think that'd be a popular one.
Can I bring my sword?
I agree.
He can hold my sword.
Yeah. All right. If you want to join York Rite, how do you do it?
You have to be a Master Mason in good standing and petition your local bodies would be the ideal thing. And you can look that up on our website, which is go to North Carolina Grand York Rite. And in that you'll see 3 other websites, which is separate for the chapter, council, and commandery, and that also gives you further information on who the officers are. But really, if you go in that Grand York Rite, North Carolina Grand York Rite page, you'll see in the toolbars it says, I think it's meetings or bodies, if you will. You click that, and it will open up everybody, what town they're meeting in, and a contact with that secretary. And they should have their email on that. So there's your way to access the secretary to say, okay, I'm interested. I'm a Master Mason. I want to petition.
Cool deal. And you're going to let us know when you're going to have the castle degree so these guys can join.
It's going to happen.
You let us know when. We'll sign them, and we'll announce it on here, and we'll play it up.
Greensburg gets fair warning. If they don't act on it, I'm buying the house, and it will happen. I expect to see y'all both there.
You're a bully now, Stancil.
See, top down guys. There he goes again.
That's great, man. I love it. I appreciate you coming down here in the middle of a pouring down rainstorm.
I love it. I'll float back. So
that's right. Thank you for coming, Stancil.
Thank you, buddy.
Good to see you, bro.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Masonian. For more information and productions, please visit and like our Facebook page at 357 Productions or 357productions.com. You may also email us at 357productionsteam@gmail.com. Again, that's 357productionsteam@gmail.com. As always, tell people that you love them, and remember, we meet on the level and part on the square.